The room is silent now, but the voices are still playing, echoing through a mind that cannot find the off switch. You see them staring at a wall, or perhaps it is you, retracing the steps of a conversation that ended hours ago. Every syllable is weighed, every twitch of a lip is scrutinized, as the ghost of a social interaction haunts the quiet evening. Nothing was actually said wrong, yet the feeling of a hidden mistake lingers, growing larger in the hollow space of the after hours. The dialogue is over for the world, but for the one who watches, the real investigation has only just begun today. Observing these patterns in others often requires a quiet commitment to understanding the deeper layers of the human mind, much like the way one chooses to follow these files. Society often looks at the quiet ones and labels them as shy or perhaps even arrogant, never realizing the intense mental labor occurring behind their still eyes. They are called overthinkers as if it were a simple flaw, a quirk of a nervous disposition rather than a complex mechanism of hypervigilant social survival. Friends might think they are disinterested or aloof during the moment, but the reality is that they are recording every single data point for later review. To the casual observer, their pause is a lack of confidence, yet it is actually the heavy lifting of a brain trying to predict every outcome. People mistake their careful words for hesitation, failing to see the internal editor who is frantically cutting out any phrase that could be misinterpreted later. They are often viewed as fragile or overly sensitive, but this intensity of focus suggests a mind that is far more active than those around them. The world sees a person who is stuck in the past, missing the fact that they are actually trying to build a safer version of the future. We call them anxious when they are actually acting as historians, documenting the nuances of human connection with a precision that most people simply cannot maintain. It is easy to dismiss their silence as emptiness, yet that silence is often the loudest part of their internal world where every sentence is being dismantled. Those who do not feel this weight often find the behavior exhausting to witness, leading to a disconnect between the observer and the one who observes. Perhaps you have felt the weight of a misunderstood silence, or seen someone drift away into their own thoughts while the rest of the world moved on. As the world continues to misjudge these quiet architects of thought, the underlying architecture of their behavior begins to reveal a much deeper and more ancient purpose. The mind acts as a sophisticated forensic laboratory, where every whispered word is placed under microscope for a biopsy of hidden intent, revealing a desperate need for absolute certainty. This is not a chaotic spiral but a structured post-mortem examination, where the subject seeks to find the exact moment a social connection might have fractured or shifted slightly. They are searching for the subtext that others ignore, believing that the truth of a relationship lies not in what was said, but in the spaces between the spoken words. The pattern is one of hypervigilance, an ancient survival mechanism adapted for the modern world, where social rejection feels as dangerous as a physical threat to the soul. Every conversation is treated as a puzzle with a missing piece, and the analyzer believes that if they think long enough, the hidden picture will finally be revealed. There is a deep-seated belief that by identifying a mistake in the past, they can somehow prevent the same vulnerability from ever occurring in the interactions of tomorrow. The brain creates a loop of playback, focusing on the tone of a greeting or the briefest of pauses, convinced that these small tremors signify a massive shift. It is a quest for control in an unpredictable world, where analyzing the past feels like a way to exert power over the variables of human emotion and reaction. The analyzer is often a perfectionist of the social sphere, one who cannot tolerate the ambiguity that naturally exists when two different human perspectives meet and clash. By deconstructing the dialogue, they hope to find the objective truth of how they are perceived, even though such a truth is often an impossible and shifting target. They are curators of their own social history, meticulously filing away every perceived slight or victory to be used as a map for their future navigation. This internal mapping system is complex, but it eventually spills out into the physical world, influencing every move they make and every word they choose to speak. In the workplace, a simple comment from a manager about a project is not just feedback, but a coded message that they will spend the evening decrypting. They replay the tone of the meeting, wondering if their brief joke was seen as unprofessional or if their silence during the presentation was taken as a lack of knowledge. In the sphere of romance, a text message that lacks an emoji becomes a crisis of interpretation, leading to hours of wondering if the affection has suddenly cooled. They look at the timestamp of a reply, comparing it to previous patterns, searching for a deviation that might signal a hidden change in the other person's heart. During a dinner with friends, they might seem present, but they are secretly logging the way a specific person looked at them when they spoke about their life. If an argument occurs, the analyzer will spend days drafting the perfect response they should have said, refining the logic until it is a sharp and polished blade. They remember the exact phrasing of a compliment from 3 years ago, yet they also remember the slight squint of the eyes that accompanied it at the time. In a grocery store interaction, A brief moment of awkwardness with a cashier can trigger a 10-minute mental review of their own basic social competence and grace. They find themselves unable to sleep because a sentence they uttered at lunch feels like it was slightly too loud or perhaps a bit too self-centered. Even a pleasant conversation is not safe from a scalpel, as they wonder if they spoke too much or if they failed to ask enough questions. They watch the body language of a stranger on the bus, wondering if their own posture is projecting the right image to a world that is always watching. At a party, they are the ones who leave early, not because they're bored, but because their mental hard drive is already full of data to process. The weight of this data begins to change the way they interact with the people they love, creating a barrier of over-calculated responses and guarded emotions. Silence becomes a heavy medium for them, filled with the echoes of what was not said and the terrifying possibilities of what the other person is thinking. As these scenarios repeat throughout their lives, a deeper psychological structure begins to take shape, explaining why the mind refuses to let the day just end. At the core of this behavior lies the cognitive process of rumination, a mental loop where the brain attempts to solve a social problem that may not even exist. This stems from the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, which perceives a social awkwardness as a threat to one's standing within the tribe, triggering a state of high alert. The prefrontal cortex then attempts to rationalize this fear by analyzing the data, trying to create a logical narrative out of the messy and often unpredictable human emotions. Metacognition, or thinking about thinking, becomes a double-edged sword for the analyzer, as they observe their own thoughts with a critical and often unforgiving eye during the night. It is often linked to an evolutionary need for social belonging, where being ostracized meant certain death, leading to a brain that is hardwired to detect rejection. Psychologically, this is known as the spotlight effect, where an individual overestimates how much others are noticing their flaws or their brief moments of verbal hesitation. The ego plays a silent role here, convinced that every word spoken is of monumental importance to the audience, even when the audience has already forgotten the interaction. There is also a component of proactive interference, where old memories of social failure bleed into the present, making every new conversation feel like a potential minefield. The brain seeks a sense of closure that the real world rarely provides, leading the individual to manufacture their own certainty through the act of relentless mental replay. Low latent inhibition may also be a factor, as the mind struggles to filter out the subtle cues that most people naturally ignore during a busy social day. By understanding these biological roots, we begin to see that the analyzer is not broken, but is instead operating on a highly sensitive frequency of human awareness. This sensitivity eventually radiates outward, touching the lives of everyone they interact with, often in ways that neither party truly understands or can easily articulate. When someone is constantly analyzing a conversation, their presence in the room can feel slightly filtered, as if they are watching the interaction from behind a glass. Those around them may sense a subtle delay in their responses, a momentary pause that feels like the gear turning of a mind calculating the most appropriate reaction. Friends might feel a strange pressure to be precise with their own words, unconsciously sensing that anything they say will be archived and examined for years to come. In a partnership, this can create a cycle of reassurance seeking, where the analyzer asks for clarification on a tone that the partner has already long since forgotten. The partner may feel exhausted by the need to explain that a sigh was just a sigh, not a hidden sign of a crumbling and failing romantic foundation. Others might perceive the analyzer as being difficult to truly know, because the analyzer is so busy managing their own image that they forget to just be. This can lead to a sense of isolation for the person who thinks too much, as they inadvertently push people away with their intense focus on the mechanics of the bond. The energy in the room shifts when one person is not fully present, their mind already busy drafting the review of the moment while the moment is still happening. People often feel a sense of being judged by the analyzer, even when the analyzer is actually only judging themselves with a terrifying and relentless internal ferocity. It creates a dynamic of ghosting, where the analyzer may disappear for days to process a small remark, leaving the other person confused by the sudden and cold silence. You might recognize this distance in someone you love, or perhaps you have felt the cold shadow of your own internal dialogue blocking the warmth of a friend. While this pattern can create a wall between souls, it also harbors a hidden capacity for depth and perception that many people will never truly get to experience. This depth of analysis often translates into a profound empathy, as the individual becomes a master at reading the subtle undercurrents that others completely miss. They are the ones who notice a flicker of sadness in a friend's eye before the friend even realizes they are feeling a moment of grief. Because they have spent years studying the mechanics of dialogue, they possess an incredible ability to navigate complex social structures with a quiet and calculated grace. Their loyalty is often unmatched, as they have already considered every possible reason to leave and have chosen to stay with a deliberate and firm intent. They are natural detectives of the human condition, able to synthesize vast amounts of emotional data into a cohesive understanding of a person's true and hidden character. While others are reacting on impulse, the analyzer is acting on insight, providing a grounded and thoughtful perspective that can stabilize a chaotic and drifting group. The same mind that keeps them awake at night is the one that produces the most creative and nuanced solutions to the problems of the day. This meticulous attention to detail allows them to craft words that resonate with a rare precision, touching the hearts of those who feel truly and deeply seen. As this strength grows, it often borders on a type of hyperperception that can become a burden, turning the gift of insight into a heavy and dark weight. The shadow of this behavior is a paralysis of the self, where the fear of a future post-mortem prevents any spontaneous action from ever taking place. They may find themselves trapped in a prison of their own making, where every potential word is vetted so thoroughly that they eventually say nothing at all. This leads to a profound sense of loneliness, as they watch others engage in the messy and beautiful chaos of life while they remain a safe observer. The constant replay of past social failures can erode a person's self-esteem until they feel like a collection of mistakes, rather than a human being worthy of love. They may begin to project their own internal criticisms onto others, assuming that everyone is judging them with the same harshness they use on their own reflections. Insomnia becomes a regular companion, as the silence of the night provides the perfect stage for the theater of past conversations to play on a loop. Physical symptoms of stress, such as a tight chest or a racing heart, often accompany the mental exhaustion of trying to solve the unsolvable past interactions. The tragedy is that the analyzer is often the only one suffering, while the people they are worried about are sleeping peacefully, unaware of the internal storm. This darkness can settle into a permanent state of being, where the world is no longer a place of connection, but a laboratory of endless and painful study. The mind becomes a vast and dusty library where every interaction is bound in a heavy volume, waiting for the late-night reader to pull it from a shelf. They can recall a specific glance from 5 years ago with a clarity that feels almost intrusive, as if the past was still breathing in the present moment. This archival process is not about nostalgia, but about building a defense against the recurring pain of being misunderstood or caught off guard by a sudden change. They categorize every person they meet, assigning them a mental file filled with observed habits, verbal tics, and the subtle ways they tend to respond to stress. The analyzer lives in a world of echoes, where a new conversation is often drowned out by the memories of 1,000 similar discussions that ended poorly. It is an exhausting way to exist, carrying the weight of every word ever spoken as if they were stones in a backpack that only grows heavier. Yet, there is a strange comfort in this archive, a sense that if they can just categorize everything correctly, they will finally be safe from the world. Perhaps you have walked through your own mental halls, touching the spines of old memories while wondering if anyone else is currently reading the file they kept on you. The search for safety through analysis is a lonely journey, one that eventually leads back to the very patterns that started the cycle in the first place. The cycle of the observer is a loop that rarely finds a natural end, as each conclusion only provides more data for the next round of internal questioning. They will close their eyes tonight and begin the work again, reconstructing the day with a precision that borders on the divine and the truly tragic. The voices of others will blend with their own internal critic, creating a symphony of what if and if only that plays until the morning light. They are the architects of a reality built on subtext, forever looking for the hidden floorboards in a room that most people simply walk through. The pattern remains unbroken because the analyzer believes that to stop thinking is to finally lose the only control they have ever truly possessed. This is not judgment. It's a pattern. Subscribe if you want to recognize them before they recognize you.